Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? I believe we have a couple of viewers out there today. I'm Jessica Teal, and I'm the partner and creative director at Echo and Company. And today we're talking about how to drive online action with social media graphics. Joining me today is Kevin Call, the social media director at Everytown. Everytown is a movement of Americans working together to end violence and build safer communities. Echo works with Everytown on a number of projects, but our primary focus is creating a series of eye-catching social graphics that you can see in your Facebook, Twitter, and other social media feeds. All of this is an effort to keep Everytown's audience engaged and, of course, grow the movement. In fact, our work with Everytown was recently nominated in Fast Company's 2014 Innovation by Design Awards. Congratulations, Kevin.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm the social director at Everytown for Gun Safety. Everytown is actually a merger of two organizations, Moms Demand Action, which is a wonderful grassroots organization that was started the day after Newtown. It's actually a Facebook page by a concerned mom that grew into a nationwide grassroots network of, I think we have chapters in all 50 states. And Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which was an organization started in 2006 by former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg and former Boston Mayor Tom Menino. And they grew that organization to about, I think, 1,000 member mayors. So we merged this great grasstops policy organization and with this network of really engaged moms and created Everytown for Gun Safety. We've been around since April.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin. And for our audience out there, as you participate in today's webinar, please feel free to send along any questions that we'll be tackling, of course, near the end of the webinar. You can send those questions via Twitter at #EchoSocialGraphics. So let me flip over to the presentation screen here, and we're going to start off with some fun facts about social media. Again, here's the hashtag quick, just in case you didn't catch that verbally, #EchoSocialGraphics. So here are some fun stats. More people interact with social graphics or images than they do with regular Facebook posts. In fact, social media users are far more likely to click share or like when you have any sort of visual content on the screen. That said, images are the #1 form of shared content across all social media platforms. And when thinking about what to put in a social media graphic or an infographic that you're sharing online, the most popular ones in 2013 were those that were inspirational or resourceful. And just another fun fact here, 75% of Facebook engagement happens within the first 5 hours after posting. So you'll hear today, like, it's important to be able to react fast. So let's get even more detailed here. And we're going to be using, of course, Everytown as our case study today for how to create a successful social media graphic campaign. So Kevin, I just have one first initial question for you. Could you tell us a little bit about how Everytown makes use of social graphics? For example, how often are they a part of your communications, and how do you decide what is graphic worthy and what isn't?
Great question. I'm getting an echo. Let's see. So graphics are a very important part of our social strategy. We use graphics primarily to drive what our message is, and to let our audience know, what our victories are, important stats about gun violence, our defeats. It's a way of engaging and motivating our supporters, and if we do it right, it's a message that they then will click like and share and take our message to their own networks. But graphics, we use them when we want to communicate a specific message that doesn't require someone clicking off Facebook. So we'll use a clickable link if, say, we want someone to take an action or we want to direct them to a longer form post like a blog or newspaper. But a graphic is a great way to communicate something small and impactful. We tend to post them about once a day nationally, and we also do, if we're running state campaigns, we'll run separate state calendars simultaneously. So we're actually sometimes posting, many more than one a day, depending on the day. And I guess to decide what's graphic worthy, I tend to ask myself before embarking on it. Is it interesting? And that's an important question. When someone wants to follow us on social, they're accepting. They're seeing our content alongside, friends of their friends' content, baby pictures, updates from their friends and family, and so that's important. You don't want to put something out there that isn't worthy of their time, and so that's an important question. The other is, is something that can be communicated in the graphic. A lot of messages are, say, too complex. They're better suited for an animation or a video. So that's an important factor before we actually embark on designing one.
Got it. Are there any particular rules around creating social media graphics?
Yeah, an important rule for us, especially on Facebook, is what we call the 20% rule. It's, I think, still relatively new, but Facebook decided that if to promote graphics, and I'll come back to that, there's a limited amount of text that can be in a graphic before they'll let you promote it. So it needs to be under 20% of the graphic area. And they did that, this apparently, from what I've heard, came down from Zuckerberg. But as people start using Facebook on mobile devices, it became important to make sure that the graphic was totally readable on a smaller screen. And so we use promoted graphics because, as you may be aware, Facebook throttles how much of your content can actually get to your followers, and so it's important to have your followers be engaged. Facebook knows that you want to see certain content. By promoting it, you make sure it gets into people's news feeds. And so that's why we try and make all of our graphics promotable as much as we can. Some graphics just can't be. You can't get the text down to that size. But we've also found that people tend to really respond to these 20% graphics. So on the screen you can see here, the lower half, you have a graphic that actually has too much text on it to be promotable. We would want to get down a few squares before we could put it out there.
Yeah, so from the design point of view, like basically you can see this is a graphic directly from the Facebook developers page that provides those guidelines. Essentially, it lays over a little block grid over your image. You can do that using a tool like Photoshop. And this is a 5x5 grid. And you can only cover 20% of those boxes with text. So the example below is showing that, obviously looks like 7 or 8 boxes that are filled in the graphic below. So that would not pass muster with Facebook. Just to show you another example, before the 20% rule, this is one of the organizations that, of course, went into form Everytown, but pre-20% rule, you can see some tactics that we tried there, lots of text. Obviously, you can imagine scrolling through that on your mobile phone. You probably won't even really read it anyway. There's just a lot of text on that graphic, so perhaps the Facebook rules actually help encourage better editorial practice when it comes to easily scannable, actionable graphics right on the page. And then, of course, to the right of that graphic, you'll see the post 20% rule with an example, imagining if you can, the little grid laid over that image and that only taking up 5 boxes. Yeah, and Kevin, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about where you do use text, since there isn't a lot of room using that 20% rule in the graphics themselves.
So we like to create what Facebook calls a thumb stopper. A striking visual image that makes you stop scrolling on your phone, and you check out the rest of the message. And so, because we can't fill up the graphic anymore with text, we actually have moved text to the area above the graphic, which allows us to actually go into more detail, to write complete sentences. It's not, maybe you've seen graphics, lots of text. They're often, they're written in short sentences that people try and cram in too much information, and it's not really readable. So this allows us to have nice explanatory paragraphs on top of the message. And what we get, and I think it shows because our 20% graphics outperform usually our non-20% graphics. When we take the time to come up with a thoughtful image, a visual metaphor for what we're trying to say, I think we end up with a better result. So I've actually been pushing these heavily internally. It took a while.
Got it. So that kind of actually leads to my next question, which is, do certain graphics perform better on certain social media channels? For example, do certain graphics perform better on Facebook than on Twitter? Or which social media channel has the most traction for Everytown?
So the different, so we're active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a small Vine following, and we just started on Tumblr. And each account, each platform has a different audience somewhat, and so they prefer different types of graphics. Our largest network is on Facebook, and it is by far the most important. It drives the most actions for us. And we found that Facebook users are interested in and will tolerate sort of more overtly political or action-oriented messaging. Quote graphics, sort of inspirational quotes, do really well on Facebook. We haven't. What does well on Facebook will often do well on Twitter, but Twitter users, because the community of people that use Twitter is somewhat different than Facebook, I'll see infographics do much better on Twitter than on Facebook. Instagram is different. People like beautiful images with minimal messaging. So if there is a message in there, it needs to be quite subtle. So the more overtly political graphics on Facebook, we haven't seen perform very well on Instagram. Users prefer nice photos of things. And Tumblr, we've actually seen our animations do the best, which is, I think users on that site love the animated GIF. For Twitter, what's also, I should probably go back to, one of the keys to making a successful Twitter graphic is the preview area. When you post a graphic, if it's larger than the sort of rectangle provided, you just need to make sure that the most important visual element is what's going to appear in the preview, so that one clicks to expand it and see the whole graphic. That's pretty important for Twitter.
Great. Yeah, so what have you found is most critical in making a social media graphic successful?
I've actually found it to be striking visuals. These platforms, especially Facebook is very, very visual. Twitter is becoming more so, and so you need to find an image that is interesting or striking. It gets you to stop scrolling through it. It's very easy to scroll past things that are unpleasant. It's also important to have a well thought out, tight message that goes with the graphic. So there's a lot of thought that goes into the construction of what that is, and so we'll often think about, when coming up with an idea, what is the visual that's unusual that will get someone to stop and read the rest of what you have to say. That's pretty important for Facebook.
Got it. Yeah, so maybe it would help then to share with our audience some of your top performing social graphics, and we'll go through them on the next following slides. And would like to hear if you have any interesting points about each of these graphics. So this first one, again, you'll see this was the organization Demand Action to End Gun Violence. That was one of the organizations that helped form Everytown. Is that correct, Kevin?
That's right. That's what our social media presence was called back then.
Okay. And how did you come up with this concept, let's say?
So this was the first time that I thought we did a 20% graphic where I thought that we really nailed it. Before, our way of complying with the 20% rule was just to use the same amount of text but just squeeze it into a very small space. Those, of course, didn't perform very well because you couldn't read them on mobile devices. So here, the approach was different. We thought up a visual metaphor for what we were trying to say, which the sort of backstory here is the gun lobby has been pushing laws in states that criminalize doctors, pediatricians who talk to parents about gun violence or safe storage of guns in the home. And so after some thought, we thought the best visual metaphor was a doctor being silenced with duct tape and an NRA logo, and I think it turned out quite well. Important is our old logo, you could see, actually had text in it. So back then, we actually had to accommodate that extra space. So that was sort of one whole box gone, leaving even less space for text in an image like this.
Yeah, that's really important to note. I don't think that some people maybe think that their logo is text, but technically Facebook will count it as text if it's there.
Right.
Great.
And so with the rebrand, I actually insisted that we come up with a sort of secondary social media friendly logo that wouldn't count against us in images.
Great, I'll bring that up on the screen next. So yeah, you can see that in the little flag area below here. That's the Everytown logo, the symbol only without the words.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit about this campaign? I know the next few slides we have, have this victory message.
So we've found through our own trial and error, but also it's backed up by some research out there, people prefer to share good news on Facebook. And so we found that one of the best places for engagement is to celebrate our victories. And it's also important in our line of work. It's a tough issue with very heavy subject matter, so it's important to take a moment to celebrate victories when we can. And so we tend to put a lot of effort, thought into the design of these campaigns. So this was, with Moms Demand Action, ran a campaign to get Chipotle to ask customers to not bring guns into their stores. People were actually taking rifles and assault weapons and eating at Chipotle. And after a social media campaign, they announced that they prefer customers not bring in these weapons. And so what we did was we thought it'd be fun to take a sort of Chipotle-like design. They often have the burrito with a message underneath it, and this time we appropriated that and used the words victory. It did very well. It's to the point.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know that this was, a larger campaign, to try to ban guns and other commercial entities as well, including Target, which is here. Obviously, the metaphor there playing with the Target logo, the O in victory, the Target logo. Super simple, but I mean, you immediately know without it being spelling out the word Target, what it is. And then,
right. And we could have crammed in, a long message about, Target asked customers to do X, Y, and Z. It would have been much smaller text, but I found it's just more effective to use the word victory and then use the space above the graphic to explain in greater detail what the victory exactly was.
Yeah.
The design is actually it's inspired by the interior of a Target store, which I've always loved. They have these red walls with white neon Target shapes around them, and I think people recognize that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then it also carried this campaign up to Panera.
This one we tried a different approach of spelling out a little bit more of what the victory said. We also could do it in a concise enough way that it was easy to read from a mobile device. And this one performed extremely well. I mean, to make something that 1.5 million people on Facebook view is great.
Yeah, and just talking from the design perspective, these were really, really fun to work on. Just playing, kind of messing with the corporate brand and putting on a little Everytown touch. Even though it's, subtle, like a little flag in a sandwich, it immediately gets that point across by just looking at the sandwich, let's say, and not even reading the text above.
And it looks like it could have come out of a Panera shop. Like it's great.
Right. Yeah. Like they actually did it themselves, which is awesome. This is another campaign that you were working on. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
This is one of my most favorite graphics. And what's interesting with this one is we only shared it in Washington State. So those numbers in context that, we have 30,000 fans, and so we did a geo-targeted post just within the state, and that it was, it got almost 100,000 views is outstanding. This is the Seattle Public Market sign. It's a very famous landmark in Seattle, and we changed the letters, work with your designers to change the letters to yes on I-594. We're running a ballot initiative in Washington State to close the background check loophole, and the initiative is I-594. And I've seen this graphic actually on supporter pages. People have adopted it as their avatar. People love this.
Yeah, I think another point here, just outside of using a visual metaphor, is to take maybe symbols or images that are commonly known imagery or symbols and have a bit of an ironic twist on them, because when people are just glancing at things in their social media feed and they see something that's maybe not quite right, that'll force them to take a second look at things, which of course gives them more time engaging with your graphic and hopefully inspiring them to take some sort of an action, even if it's just linking to the next page, on your website, for example. All right, here's another top performing graphic. Could you tell us a little bit about this campaign?
So we produce original research, and so we release these reports and white papers, which we get out to the media, we get out to policymakers, and the role I like to play for our social audience is, I don't expect people to read long, dense reports. I, of course, make them available, but I actually prefer to tease out the most important findings of our research in social graphics. And so I'll often, put out a link to the report if someone wants it. And this is, let's see, this. What I love about this map is we wanted to make something that teased the rest of the content. So you saw this and you want to know, why exactly is Texas and Florida blue? And so you actually click to this and it would go to a map where you could look up safety laws in those states for children and guns.
Great.
It's an example of a linkable image. There are different image types in Facebook. We're mostly showing shareable graphics, but this one is one you would click on and would take you to a page off Facebook.
Got it. Okay. And then there's this graphic. This is kind of a different look than the ones we've seen before that were more photo based. This has more of an illustration look and feel. Was there a particular reason why you guys had decided to try an illustration approach versus a photographic approach for this campaign?
We explored this corner of the brand, this graphic I love, it's gorgeous. The campaign was about child access laws, so laws that keep kids safe by requiring parents to store guns in safes and unlocked. This because of the nature about kids and gun accidents, we went for a sort of more childlike feel a little bit, which is where I think where the illustrations come in. We also went with the vibrant colors in our brand. I think they look great.
Yeah, I think that raises a good point, kind of looking at this next graphic too. Essentially, for all of the key messages that you send out on a regular basis and fun stats or interesting points, you do make that extra effort between these two graphics, especially as branding opportunities for your organization. Kind of immediately by looking at these two graphics by the style of the font, the color scheme, and the general stylistic approach that it's probably an Everytown graphic. I know that this one in particular was pretty well performing. Could you tell us about this particular campaign or graphic?
So this came out of the next report we released, which is on domestic violence laws, and as you can see from this very well-designed infographic, domestic violence and guns in the U.S. is a problem, a significant one, and this one shows it. It's one of the few infographics on Facebook we've seen do exceptionally well, I think because it is so easy to digest. I mean, you see this and you immediately know something is wrong. That the share numbers were outstanding. And so the visual difference between the last graphic and this graphic, you can see the different ways we played with the brand. It's clearly an Everytown graphic, but here we've brought out the darker colors in our brand because of the serious subject matter. I think it was really smart.
Great. So just a reminder to folks out in the audience, as you listen to Kevin and I talk today and take a look at the slide visuals that we have, please don't forget to tweet any questions you have to hashtag #EchoSocialGraphics, and we'll be taking those at the end of today's presentation. So just those were your top performing graphics historically. But also, I'm just curious about other favorites. I've included a couple of mine in here too that we've worked on with you. So just want to take a sneak peek at those. This first one, again, was super fun. We love the parody graphics, working with some highly recognizable vintage imagery. This was a series, a campaign series you did for Dr. NRA. Could you tell us a little bit about that campaign? Again, this was from Demand Action, of course, before Everytown was formed.
This is a beautiful series we were quite proud of and loved working with you guys on. This is we went back to vintage smoking ads where cigarette companies would put doctors in their ads and make claims about how cigarettes weren't bad for you or were good for you. We went back to this theme during the last fight over the nomination of the Surgeon General. That candidate had made statements about guns in the past that made the NRA upset, and the gun lobby would prefer that physicians not talk about guns, that the various public health agencies not study them. And so we had some fun bringing back the parallel we saw with the fight over cigarettes and the Surgeon General back in, I think it was the 60s. And so here we went through, we took vintage ads and replaced the cigarettes with various gun imagery and added sort of snarky quotes. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, hopefully you guys in the audience noticed the replacement of the cigarette with a bullet. Very nice touch there. This next campaign actually, again, a previous one from Demand Action, but it actually started off as one of those long scrolling email graphics. Is that correct, Kevin?
That's right. It was a beautiful graphic. It was a long graphic we sent to our list that broke down common myths and about gun violence that one would often get from, say, a conservative relative at Thanksgiving, and gave the viewer facts to counter those myths. And we took that long scrolling graphic with these various myths and broke them out into individual pieces, and this is one of them. One of the favorite things about the graphic for me was the Echo's decision to make it a long table. So the background of the graphic was a long Thanksgiving table with you would scroll down and see different things you would find on it, centerpieces and toys and placemats, and this is one of the pieces. It's great.
Yeah, this one was really fun to work on too, and it goes to show that if you are producing a piece for some other media channel like email, how you can easily repurpose those graphics in a different format, so you're not having to do twice the amount of work. You can create graphics from the email graphics you create for social media. This one was just a favorite of mine as well that I put in here, just because I thought it was a really great visual. It's showing an actual measurement with the glass half empty approach, which rather than a standard bar graph or a chart, showing it with the actual topic about the social graphic, I thought was a great metaphor for this campaign. Anything else?
This is really smart. This whole series. Oh, sorry. The whole series was a very sort of dark exploration of the rest of our brand, but it worked very well. Towards the end of it, we put out some stats about gun lobby positions on things that people may not have known about, and by the end of it, we could see the response was very high. It was very successful.
Great. So obviously you could make graphics over graphics to your heart's content, but I'm curious, what are some of the new things that you're trying with social media graphics? First of all, I know that we are working on social graphics with animation. Hopefully you guys can see this online, but I'm going to press play here just to run through it quickly, and then Kevin, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about this experience. Let me just hit play. It's really short. Hopefully everybody in that came across on the screen okay. Kevin, could you talk a little bit about this approach for Instagram?
Yeah, we've been having a lot of fun trying out making animations. We have a long bit of history together making graphics, but at least for our team, it's a new thing for us. But it's fun to be able to play with another dimension. You can sort of bring what is otherwise, a pie chart to life using animation. It's great. And we can also, the nice thing about this is they don't work quite as well on Facebook because of the way Facebook sort of prioritizes different types of content. Facebook seems to really prefer static images and graphics, but we can use this on other platforms at the same time. We can upload this to Vine and use it on Vine, post Twitter as a Vine. It also went up as a GIF on Tumblr. It let us take one piece of content and repurpose it for multiple channels at the same time, which was also smart.
Great. I'll hit play one more time just for everybody to admire. Yeah, and then another tactic that we're just experimenting a little bit with lately is, outside of animation, adding sound. Previously we looked at the Chipotle and Target victory graphics, but I also know that you were targeting Kroger, of course, And we'll see if it comes through via the Google Hangout, but I'm going to hit play on here, and in the background you should be able to hear some nice grocery store music. Let's see if it comes through. Yeah, so that's another tactic that's been used, again, playing with sound rather than animation. Did you notice any difference in performance of animation versus sound, or any interesting thoughts there?
Adding sound didn't make a difference when it came to performance. It also just makes the whole experience a little fun. This is a current campaign running against Kroger, similar to what we've done with Chipotle and Target. And here we've adopted a familiar Kroger graphic style. This is us sort of teasing them a little bit. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and just it goes to show how something so subtle just adds that extra wow factor for your most committed members of the audience. It just shows that you went that extra mile to do a really unique campaign. Are there any other new things that you're trying with social media graphics, or is it mostly around animation, sound, and of course playing up the visual metaphors and the ironic graphics?
It's mostly been animation, ways to try and animate complicated pieces of data that you can't do justice to in 2 dimensions.
Got it. Yeah, so since we have about 20 minutes left with the last few minutes here, just wanted to see if you had any advice for organizations out there for just getting started with social media graphics and trying to use them on their platforms. Yeah,
we were just starting out. We made really good use of what's available in Flickr under the Creative Commons license. There's a lot of great photography to choose from, and that can be the basis for a beautiful social graphic. You would say take a nice image of the horizon, and you could use the area in the sky as sort of a canvas. You take the negative space and place text on it. The licensing is different for those. You have to read the fine print about do you credit the photographer or not. But it's a great place to pull in nice images that you can repurpose for graphics at no cost. I also recommend using tools like Aviary, which is a free graphic editor, sort of like Photoshop Lite. It's a great resource if you're just starting out and don't have the design resources for expensive programs like, say, the Photoshop suite.
Yeah, and along those lines too, in bullet number 2 here, there's also some free tools out there, kind of like infographic or social graphic generators. Of course, there are pro plans that you can pay with these services too, but there's a basic level that allows you a certain number of graphics to kind of create on the fly, even if you don't have design experience. You might want to check out something like Infogram or Pictochart, especially if you don't have an in-house designer. Or, of course, just making use, like you said, of really awesome Flickr photos that you have from your organization. Those will look really authentic, even if they aren't necessarily professional photos. And, of course, making use of those Creative Commons photo licenses. Just in thinking about topics for your social media graphics, I like to think like an interesting place to start is just to think about the mission of your organization and those key facts or stats or major actions that you want your audience to take, or inspirational stories out in the field, just to start generating ideas for content or subject matter for your infographics. Additionally, like thinking about how to make it clever. Is there some sort of a visual metaphor or a play on a visual that we could do that would really cause the audience to, let's say, stop and take a second look? And of course, using those metaphors so we can eliminate the text with that so that we can abide by that 20% rule for Facebook. I think another super, super important thing that you guys do well, of course, because you have the resources, is being able to jump on opportunities and moments that are out in the news that really affect your organization. I know like a lot of nonprofits out there may not have that luxury of staffing or budget to be able to jump on those moments, but hence the last bullet here, really just trying to figure out what matters most for your organization, and then capturing those opportunities and jumping on the moments to take advantage of those on social media. All right, so with the last 3 minutes here, we want to save the last 15 minutes for any questions that come in. Again, send any questions to #EchoSocialGraphics, and then we'll be sure to answer those questions in about 3 minutes here. But some concluding thoughts from today's presentation. Obviously, you probably know this yourselves, experimenting on your mobile device, just scrolling through your own news feed, but social graphics get noticed a lot more than just simple text posts. Of course, because audiences have a very low attention span, especially on mobile, social media has an extremely fast turnover rate. So make sure that you post regularly and maintain that regular presence so your users know that you're active and listening and that their decisions and actions really matter. Of course, making sure you know what's important to your organization so you don't miss those windows of opportunity. You need to be agile enough as an organization to be able to react to certain moments so you can capture them. As illustrated by Everytown, take whatever opportunity you can to build your brand. Ensure that your graphics have a consistent look and feel, so immediately when an audience sees that, they know that that's an Everytown graphic, and of course link those graphics back to your organization. And of course, this is general good neighborly practice. You want to pay it forward. You want to share your partner organization's graphics, and likely they'll return the favor and share yours, and that can only help expose your message and build your audience. Any additional concluding thoughts, Kevin, before I start looking through the questions that have come in so far?
Yeah. Before putting anything out, ask yourself if it's something that you would find interesting, that you would want to share. That's an important part of, I think, our process when we go out there. Is this interesting? Is the question I ask a lot.
Great. All right. So, of course, there's a train coming by our office in Detroit right now, in case you hear that. But if there are any questions out there, again, #EchoSocialGraphics. We actually have about 5 questions that have come in so far. First question for you, Kevin. How do you measure success? Do you set targets for engagement and/or reach for a graphic before launch?
I like to see we have engagement averages that we set over a period of time, and success is meeting or exceeding those. The 2 numbers I tend to focus most on are shares and reach. I want to see that our graphic made it to a significant piece of our audience and beyond. That's how you grow. Is well, at least virally, is you share content and make sure people share it with their own networks, and that brings back and grows your network. So shares and reach are, I think, the 2 most important measurements for us. Another one is looking at the share rate. So you put in shares over the reach, and that gives you a share rate. That's an important number we track closely.
Got it. Second question for you, Kevin. Have you shared any of these graphics on Pinterest? Is that a viable channel for this type of content?
I think it absolutely would be. I don't have a lot of Pinterest experience myself. It's our friends at Moms Demand Action have a thriving Pinterest account. It's, I think, a slightly more important network for them because of the number of moms that would use Pinterest. But it's something I am looking at to expand into as we grow our team a little bit here.
Cool. This is kind of an interesting question that has come in for question number 3. You seem to have avoided the lure of the meme-style graphics and language. I'm thinking of cats playing on pianos, for example. Was that a conscious decision to avoid?
It's a really good question. We haven't done them in part because Facebook has been trying to keep what they have determined to be lower quality content off Facebook, and so I don't exactly know how their algorithm does it, but you probably noticed at this point you're seeing a lot less of that. Things that are traveling around virally, Facebook, and of a certain quality, maybe it has too much text on it. Facebook is doing what it can to sort of depress the organic shares of things like that. We also just think it just isn't our brand. We just tend to enjoy beautiful, smart design that we hope is stands the test of time a little bit. That's our style.
Yeah, I suppose it might make it seem like the brand is less professional or less intelligent, that it's just kind of falling for the current trends that are out there rather than setting trends themselves. I don't know if that's correct, but that's my impression.
Totally.
Yeah, okay. All right, 4th question. How do you decide between a static graphic or using an animated graphic?
For animations, it depends if we think we can put all the information, put the message in the graphic statically. When you have an animated graphic, it allows you to put another. You can add more frames. You can add more text. We'll use animations for things that are that can't be messaged statically, and I'm not sure if that is entirely clear. We'll use animations for more complicated messages a little bit. Or if we see an opportunity in a static graphic, we think we could animate that and have fun with it. That's also when we'll try to animate something.
Yeah, one other thing, if you are really trying to capture the moment and be time sensitive, just coming from the design point of view, obviously animation potentially could take a bit longer than a static graphic depending on the context, and if you really just need to get something out there pretty quickly with a low level of effort, the static graphic is probably the way to go versus an animation. Of course, it's all subject to the concept behind the graphic, but that might be a factor as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right too.
And then the final question that has come in, unless anybody else wants to quick here's the question at #EchoSocialGraphics, is do you ever include calls to action with a social graphic?
I've been putting calls to action in the text above social graphics and less in the social graphics themselves, in part because of the restrictions with the 20% rule. My thinking has been, we want to create that beautiful thumb stopper that makes you stop and take in the rest of the message. And if adding the call to action means it's not promotable or gets in the way of the messaging of the graphic, I would just prefer that it go in the text above. And so we'll do that. We'll have a beautiful stat in the graphic. And if you do want to read more, there's more text about the stat above it. And then at the bottom, if you want to take action, there's a link and ways for you to do that.
Great. Well, those were all of today's questions. So thank you very much, Kevin, for participating today. And of course, to all of you out there in the audience, thanks for joining us. If you do have any questions, if you have design questions or, how we can work with you to help you with your own social graphic campaign, of course, tweet us at Echo and Company. And then you can reach Kevin at Everytown or at Kevin J. Call. That is all for today, folks. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.